Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. And I am your host, Larry Rodarte. I want to invite everybody to come on into the room. We've got a great show lined up for you here tonight. And it's been a while. I have been away for about 2 months. And so it's nice to be back in the studio with my producer, Matt Lester. And my guest today is John Ayala, a community activist. And he and I are going to be talking about current events that are happening that are affecting Latinos in this country of ours. So please join us. I want everybody to come on in the room. If you got a statement you want to make or you have a question, please feel free to put it in the room and we will try to address it as best we can. So, welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and today is the 16th of September. What does that mean? That means it is Mexico's Independence Day. And for all of us who are of Mexican descent, we celebrate that in our hearts because we know that that is our history, our culture and background. And just like Americans, we are a melting pot of all different nations. And so today is a very special day that is celebrated uh, throughout Mexico, of course, and through the United States here with Mexican Americans. So happy Mexican Independence Day. And I have been away for the last 2 months. Many of you know I was in Italy, I was in Europe for the summer, and just needed a break and needed to refill my soul as an American. And it's been a beautiful experience to walk around and see the beaches of Italy and Sicily. And I just really, I think maybe in the future I'll do a show just on that. Who knows? But today, there's so much happening in America. And as I came back just this week from Italy, what a welcoming home. The week was really tough on a lot of individuals. And so I have invited somebody who is very knowledgeable on current events that are happening within our country. And his name is John Ayala. He's a community activist, and I want everyone to welcome John Ayala to Mi Gente on Air. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a guest. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really important, that we share how we as Mexican Americans are feeling at this time. We are there's a barrage of news that has happened. It's some of it's not so good, and some of it has just really affected people this week. And I think that one of the things that has really affected so many of us locally, and I'm talking about the Hispanic community, or the Latino community, whichever way you hear all these terms, or even just Mexican Americans. It's been really difficult because of what has happened with the immigration issue in our country.
Yeah.
And when I left for Italy, it was during the time of the LA raids that were happening with ICE, and that alone has been just a huge change in our daily lives as American citizens. And now it looks like there is going to be the I think it's Memphis that they're targeting now.
Memphis is the next city
Yeah.
that
So, as an Mexican American, John, in the city of Saginaw, Michigan, tell me, how are you feeling these days?
well, it's really hard to say. I always tell people I'm from Saginaw, but I live in Frankenmuth.
Hmm.
Okay, so 13 miles difference the way a crow flies, but a million miles different in how people live.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so my experience is kind of a mixed bag. I have empathy, not a
Mhm.
new word. It's been around for a long time, and so I see what's going on in Saginaw, in the Latino community, and I use Latino to mean a coalition of people, but principally Mexican American in Saginaw. That we're the overwhelming largest number, and I see the fear. I see that people are afraid, and we shouldn't be afraid to be in our own country. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily talking about fear because a person's an undocumented immigrant, but because of the latest Supreme Court ruling, where if you look Mexican or if you look Latino, I'll use Latino for this discussion. If you look Latino, you speak Spanish, looks like you have a low-wage job, then the Fourth Amendment doesn't protect you.
Right.
They can stop you and ask for your papers. Where have we heard that before? Where are your papers?
Yeah.
Isn't that a sad state of affair?
Yeah. And the thing is that this was just overturned by the Supreme Courts in our country, right?
Yes.
Because a lower court judge ruled that it was unconstitutional that they could not racial profile during the LA raids and all. And the Supreme Court came forward just last week and said, yes, they can.
Yes.
They can racial profile. So to all of those in my community, I want to just say, we know that they're going after, like we mentioned, now they're going into Memphis.
Yes.
We know that sometimes when there is a ruling by the Supreme Court like this, an overturning, as it will, it spreads. And I think in our community, I don't know how it's going to affect possibly those of us that look very Mexican, those that may be in what they perceive as a Mexican job in our communities, working at restaurants or what have you,
service industry,
or if they're speaking Spanish.
Yes.
And we do this in our community. How is that going to affect our young people who typically already are sometimes in our eyes racially profiled in stops? And how is that now going to affect, do you think?
It affects us in some not so obvious ways. For one thing, it is a benefit to be able to speak more than one language. You just came from Europe.
Oh my gosh.
How many times? 2, 3, 4 different languages. I always joke that Americans speak 2 languages, English and bad English.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a joke. But the truth is, we don't value being able to have bilingual or multiple languages. So now, if people are afraid to speak Spanish, and we've seen this before, my oldest sister remembers being punished for speaking Spanish in school in Saginaw.
Yeah, in Saginaw.
Okay. What a shame. Being able to speak more than one language and to have a Spanish speaking neighbor in Mexico. Gosh, Spanish is one of the most spoken languages worldwide.
Yeah.
So now if speaking Spanish is puts a target on your back, who's going to want to speak Spanish?
Yeah. It's really sad. And the thing is, like I went to Italy. Thank God they were multiple lingual and they were able to speak English predominantly. Everybody I dealt with over there spoke English for me. Thank God. Although, the Spanish language and the Italian language is very similar.
Very similar.
Words.
Yes.
Some words, not phrases, but words. And so I was able to get by and utilize my actual Spanish tongue. I noticed as the month went on and, I started using that tongue more so than I ever did in my life.
Yes.
And so thank God, people in Europe at a very young age, young people are taught multiple languages in their schools.
Yes.
And isn't it a shame that here in America, they want us just to speak English?
Yes.
So,
and that's okay. But the truth is, we don't have an official language.
Yeah.
Contrary to belief, English is the language. If you're in this country, you got to speak English. Well, you know what? As a practical matter, yes.
Yeah.
As a legal requirement, not so much.
Yeah.
But still, we're overlooking the value of being able to speak more than one language.
Yeah.
The world is getting smaller.
And you mentioned your older sister. I remember my mom telling me that and she grew up in the 40s at Saginaw. I went to Saginaw High, graduated in 1949. but it was really difficult for her to, you know, proclaim that she was from Mexico when they would
Yes.
ask her, are you Mexican? Are you from Mexico? Oh no, I'm from Spain.
Oh my gosh.
That classism that was there.
Yes.
And then, her name was Anita. My father's name was Valeriano,
Oh, I love that
and
name.
they vowed when they got married that their kids were not going to have Spanish names.
Oh,
They made it where it was, something to look down upon. And then, so when we were born, why do you think my name's Larry?
yes.
And my sisters have very English names, and so
These kind of unfair judgments just promotes self-loathing.
yeah,
And that's a shame, because what makes us interesting? The multiplicity of our cultures.
yeah,
We're not one culture. When somebody says, I want my country back, which country are you talking about?
yeah.
Because the Northeast is a lot different than the Southwest.
Right.
The central states are different than the southern states.
Yeah.
It doesn't make one of them wrong and one of them right. It makes them different. And it is that difference that makes us a richer culture.
Yeah, yeah. And so, when we look back, say pre-COVID 5 years ago, we're vastly different then from to now, and we went through the whole George Floyd incident, which
Yes.
I think it moved the pendulum, in a more positive way. Although some people are still angry about Black Lives Matter or whatever, but to me it was a positive, and now it seems like we're going back the other way. We're swinging back the other way. If you look back in 2015, I wish we were the America that we were in 2015 as opposed to today.
Yes.
And what's really sad is that when I talk to young people, and they know my age, and they know the time period that I grew up when they were their age in the 80s and stuff, and they always tell me, man, it must have been, I wish we could live in the 80s. they really do. And I'm like, man, it was a whole different time, a whole different vibe. There was a reckoning where people were trying to do better. Everybody was, more positive, and now there's just so
more
much
inclusive.
hate. Yeah,
Yeah. More embracing of diversity,
yeah,
more accepting of equity, more wanting inclusion. Oh my gosh, I think I just said DEI.
yeah.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
when people say DEI and all you do is use the acronym, it's a punchline. But
Yeah.
who's against diversity? Who's against equity? Who's against inclusion? And I think we should stop using the acronym and just say the words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet that gets perceived as a lowering of standards. No,
Right.
it is a recognition that there is talent that has not had an opportunity to be at the table, and how to recognize that talent that might be different than what you and I are accustomed to. Not inferior, different.
Yeah. And it's really sad because what you have grown up with, what I've grown up with in understanding.
And I grew up in the 60s.
Well, what I'm talking about is understanding our Constitution and our rights as
Yes.
American citizens. It's being eroded from us.
Absolutely. The First Amendment, freedom of speech,
Yeah. Just
freedom
this
of the
week.
press,
Yes.
protection against unreasonable search and seizure.
Now they just totally want to censor
Yeah.
everything that anybody can say. If you're from the left wing, they don't want you to be saying anything negative towards the administration.
That is suppression of speech.
Yeah.
Our country has
And when did we see
always-
that before? 1940s.
Yes.
Nazi Germany.
Yes,
Yeah.
in the 1930s and
30s, yeah,
the
true.
ascension of the Nazi Party in Germany. Muzzle the press, get rid of the professionals, downgrade education, make a villain, find somebody to hate, somebody who's the vermin, somebody who poisons our blood, somebody who's dragging us down, somebody who's to blame for our misfortune. No, it's an old playbook. There's nothing new.
Yeah.
Make America great again is not new. Reagan used it.
Yeah. History repeating itself.
It does.
That's what it is.
And that's why the expression is, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, no, very interesting times. And the parallels are not hyperbole.
Right. Oh, yeah.
They are so horrible. The parallels are so horrible that we don't want to believe they're true, because we can't believe we're doing the same things all over again.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom that we didn't learn.
Yeah. And it's just, my father was a migrant worker. They were immigrants here. my grandparents, all four of my grandparents immigrated to the United States. I'm only two generations away, from that. And yet they want to demonize immigrants in this country now. And I just don't see it that way, because I know what we had brought to the table as far as, really being, our contributions to this community.
Oh, absolutely.
And so how do we go forward as American citizens when the threat of our constitutional rights is continually being eroded?
Well, we need to challenge when people tell lies. I'm just going to call them lies.
Yeah.
I wrote down something, immigrant crime myths, and went and had 6 different sources. And the conclusion is the same across the different studies over time. It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Undocumented immigrants commit crime at less than half of what native citizens commit crime. But yet, to listen to what you hear in the news, they're destroying our country.
Yeah.
They don't send the best. Okay, wasn't that the first thing coming down us? They don't send the best. They send murderers and rapists. Oh, I'm sure some of them are good people.
Yeah.
But people didn't hear that some of them are good people. And a lot of them are good people. Some of them are bad people. If you flip that, that's more accurate.
Yeah.
So when we don't challenge those kind of lies, when we make it seem like they're terrible, they're destroying our country, it's an invasion. Remember the caravan? There's a caravan coming to our border. After the election, the caravan disappeared.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get an other to hate.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember, the immigrant issue, what President Trump ran on was the idea that it was criminals.
Yes.
We're
going to get the worst.
We're going to
get the really bad guys.
Yeah. And like, what have we seen in LA?
We're getting anybody who fits the description.
Yeah. And now the Supreme Court, and this to my listeners, and I'm saying this again, I want you to understand about what the Supreme Court ruled on. John mentioned it earlier, and I mentioned it here again, because it is such an important issue to look at, because I personally think it's going to continue into the wrong direction. It's going to affect not only Latinos, but people that Asians,
yes.
The Asian community, or Koreans already.
People of color.
Yeah,
people the wide spectrum of different
African Americans are going to be
yes.
affected eventually. You watch.
Yes.
And the thing is that the Supreme Court overturned a lower court judge that said that they could not racially profile, basically, during the LA raids that happened in early summer this year.
Yeah.
And so now here we are. The ruling just came last week in September that they could racially profile. If you look Latino, if you work in a job that is considered a Latino job, as well as if they are speaking Spanish, they have the right to pull you over and to investigate whether you are a U.S. citizen or not. And
show me your papers.
Yeah, show me your papers. And the thing is that what my concern is okay, so eventually does that go throughout the nation, and then our kids are pulled over because they look Hispanic? We already know it happens.
Yes.
Like, shoot, you go into some other communities, I've been pulled over, I've been pulled over, and it's racial profiling, and we know it when it happens. We typically know
it is.
And now it's like the Supreme Court said, yep, you can do it. They can do it.
Yes, that's reasonable search and seizure.
Yeah,
it's not a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
And what I'm trying to say, that's not what we've grown up with. That's not what we knew, And
except in the Southwest, I remember.
Yeah, well, that was
I remember
my time, but
yeah, okay, I'm a little bit older. I old up to it, but I remember on a recruiting trip going through New Mexico and Arizona and Texas, and being told that we were going to have to go through a stop. I said, for what? Well, they're going to ask if you're a U.S. citizen. I said, why? They said, well, because the border of Mexico is right there.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, but I live in Michigan. I go to Port Huron. I don't see a check spot for Canadians.
Listen to how I talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that by itself. Yeah.
Well, see, and it hurts. It really hurts. This whole week has really hurt me because, I remember my dad, like I say, he was a migrant worker. he had a thick accent, like really thick. That's just one generation away. He never, lived in Michigan predominantly most of his life, but he never could get away from that accent of his first language.
Yeah.
Up until the day he died. Now, 2 weeks before he died, which would have been around 5 years ago at this time, because he died September 25th, he reverted to nothing but Spanish. He no longer spoke English, and it wasn't his choice. That was just something that came as he was going through the process
Sure.
of dying, but it's just
But
really
it tells you how central to him it really
it was, yeah, and all these years, and because they wanted us to assimilate into American culture, they
Right.
didn't speak Spanish to us in the house. They spoke when they didn't want us to know something,
Yeah.
and that is an indicative, very quintessential for most Latinos in Saginaw.
I think so.
Yeah.
I spoke with a good friend of mine, Danny Sosa.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for Dan. And he talked about Saginaw is so different than Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
And Grand Rapids, they speak Spanish.
Oh yeah.
In Saginaw, we've lost it.
Yeah.
So, so what was the difference between Saginaw and Grand Rapids? I don't know what the difference was, but
well, I really think it was the influx of immigrants that came into Grand Rapids, say in the 90s,
more recent.
And the same thing goes for a very similar city to Saginaw, which is Pontiac, Michigan. There are a lot of immigrants that speak Spanish. I go there, I go to some of the restaurants, you hear nothing but Spanish.
Yes.
And I feel like the outsider, but I'm Mexican just like all of them,
Yes.
Mexican Americans. So it's really tough times that we're living in.
Well, it is because we're being demonized.
Yeah.
We're being demonized on the criminal front. We're demonized on the economic front.
Oh, yeah.
They are taking resources. They are taking
your jobs.
American jobs. I think about it, I say, gosh, you got somebody who came to this country, doesn't speak the language, doesn't have an education, and they're taking your job?
What's wrong with you people?
Yeah. What did you do in school? You didn't go?
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk more with John Ayala, community activist. We're in some pretty deep discussion here. We want you to join in if you can in terms of the live feed here on Facebook as well as other social media. But tune in again as we come back from commercial, and we'll talk more on Mi Gente on Air. So thank you, everybody who has tuned in to the social media platform. And it's Linda Hodges. I just want to mention she's on here. Thank you, Linda, for being with us and being part of the discussion here. She says it's going to affect us all, talking about our discussion here. And she says prayers. And I totally agree. We don't realize, who would have thought, honestly, that we are in the position that we are as Americans 5 years ago. So it's really something that we need to think about as community, and it's scary times. And so this is why I kind of wanted to bring this program, coming back from Italy and talking and having this discussion, because as many of you know, I'm at the Union Civica a lot. I'm cooking there. John loves my tostadas.
Yes, tostadas with goat cheese.
Yeah, and I'm always fearful who's going to show up, and maybe question me. I don't have a problem being questioned, because it's just look how I talk. I'm from here, but what about some of my customers that may possibly be there, or people who attend Civica functions? So it's just really a tough time that we're living in, and I just feel like if kind of a comparison would be, how we all felt when COVID hit and we were all sent home and to hunker down and be home, and eventually we started
felt that our rights were being violated.
Yes, and that's what it feels like again.
Yes.
We're living it again. It's like, John, what happened? As we are getting older, times are getting tougher.
Well, I posted something recently that racism never went away. It just went underground.
It was
waiting
hidden.
for the right leader. The time has arrived.
Yeah, that's so true.
And
so true.
I think about I jotted a few notes, Larry, if you'll indulge me. What I consider racist rhetoric. They're eating our cats and dogs.
Yeah.
They took over a housing complex.
Mm-hmm.
One death by an illegal immigrant is one too many. They're poisoning our blood. They are genetically predisposed to commit crime. Animals, stone cold killers, the worst people, and the enemy from within. Emptying their prisons and sending them to the U.S., notwithstanding that we're sending them to El Salvador. They're taking our jobs. Migrants will cut your throat. Migrants have bad genes, not sending their best. All of those are utterances from the highest levels of our government against us, against people of color.
Yep. Exactly.
So what has changed? That kind of discourse has become normalized.
Yeah.
Why? Why do we let that become normalized? Why isn't there a pushback? So that's part of it.
Yeah.
Racism didn't go away. It just went underground waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
And apparently the time is now. And those statements from the highest levels of our government reflect that acceptance of racism.
Right. Right. Well, let's go back into the show. We've got another segment of 24 minutes here on Mi Gente on Air, and my producers fixing John's microphone.
Thank you.
But thank you, everybody who is in the room and who is joining us tonight, and those of you who will see this later on social media. This is a show where we can express our views, and it's a show for the concerns and the contributions and the culture of Latinos in our community. So that's why we're doing this here. So let's go back in the show and more on Mi Gente on Air.
This is Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and I am returning to this seat here as the talk show host for Mi Gente on Air. And I am very happy to have this voice, to have to be able to sit at the table and to express my views, although it's very difficult. It's a difficult time in America. And I know that for whatever reason, that whatever I'm feeling, I know others may be feeling different. But it's just terrible what we are going through as a country. And as many of you know, like I said in the earlier part of the show, I'm returning from Italy, believe it or not. And I was there for quite a long time for a vacation. But to come back to this, I came back on Wednesday, the day after Charlie Kirk had passed away, and it was just horrific. It was just a horrific to see that, to view that on the not the television, but actually on my phone. And nobody deserves that. And so, it's just what concerns me now is just how polarized we have become even more. So if you thought we were polarized during the 2024 election, it's even more so now. And what would you say, John? How can we kind of as a community, as a country, move forward and try to be more united?
Well, then we have to treat all horrible deaths equally.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Kirk didn't deserve to die the way he did.
No.
His children didn't deserve to see that. Clearly.
Yeah.
But the legislator from Minnesota, her and her husband, killed in their home. They didn't deserve that. But where were the flags at half-staff for them?
Right.
Where was NFL requiring everybody to stand for a moment of silence, except for 6 teams? And I'm proud that Detroit was one of them that didn't do that. Not because I hated the guy, but because let's not deify him and then feel outraged if anybody should say something negative about him. But then that should be universally applied, and it hasn't been.
Yeah, and I hate the idea that he as a Christian, there were good points in regards to some of the things that he had said and he believed, but he's become that focal point of the division of them and us or whatever,
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
just I mean, is that what's going to happen with some of our leaders continuously throughout this time period as we
How many people knew who he was?
yeah
Okay.
yeah
There are a lot of people, if you ask them, so I never heard of him before.
right
And then they look at some of the things that he said.
yeah, and that's their first introduction,
Yes.
and
And then
that's
they're
terrible,
saying, oh my gosh, Michelle Obama and our Supreme Court Justice, her name's escaping me.
Ketanji Brown.
Yes.
Mhm.
That they were DEI.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, well,
and see there, that's a term that they've made a negative connotation
absolutely.
towards that,
Right.
and it's not. In my lifetime, it has never been.
No.
DEI was
Woke.
great,
Woke.
diversity.
It's another word they made bad.
Yeah, diversity in our community, that's a plus.
Yes.
It's a
Equity,
stronghold.
inclusion.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying earlier, we should just say the words instead of the acronym. Because
Yeah.
what is wrong with diversity? What is wrong with equity? What is wrong with inclusion? How are those bad things? And the answer is, well, they lowered the standards. No, that does not mean that.
Yeah.
And we let them get away with that. No, it didn't lower the standards. Michelle graduated at, high up in her class.
Yeah, Ketanji Brown, the Supreme
Yes.
Court Justice.
Yes. And then to
Incredibly.
say that they're DEI hires and they stole the position of a white person. Well, right away, that kind of rhetoric is divisive.
Yeah.
It says it's got to be us against you.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be that way. It
No.
should, we as American citizens, nobody's perfect. Nobody has been, at fault. I mean, not what I'm trying to say is that nobody has. Everybody has been at fault in regards to at some time in their life, racism, and sometimes it's unconscionable.
Yeah.
We don't even know it, or we were raised, or we were taught a certain way, or we weren't taught in our schools a certain way, or whatever. But we somehow have to look to unify our country, our communities, because what is going to happen for our kids, your grandkids? What kind of world are they going to be living in?
I hope they'll be in a world that's tolerant. I hope they will be in a world that doesn't require me to assimilate, but rather that allows me to integrate.
Yes.
What's the difference? Assimilate means I have to give up who I am and be like you.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be somebody like you that reminds me I'm not like you.
Mhm.
But if we integrate the good things you have, the good things I have, I mean, nachos, really? You think they came from Mexico? No. Okay.
Right.
There's an example of something that was integrated.
Mhm.
And
that goes back to the time period, like I say, with my parents. They really felt it would be better to assimilate. In some cases they were justified, but like even when I know that like in the time of many of our local Hispanics or Latinos, when they went to schools, the educators told them not to teach Spanish. It would hurt them. We know that's not true now. Can you imagine if we spoke fluent Spanish, how much better we would be off as individuals in our communities?
as I said earlier, multiple language, the ability to speak multiple languages is a plus,
So-
not a negative.
So they stifle that already, right? But the thing is that in numbers, by 2050, they're saying, that the Hispanic Latino community is going to be the largest of all ethnic races in
We
our
will
country.
become a minority majority country.
Yeah.
And what that means is that all of the minority groups in the aggregate will be the larger percentage of our population.
Well, si Dios quiere, if you and I are both alive 25 years from now, maybe we'll see that. But that's not a long period of time away.
No,
25
it isn't.
years where in yet it's like we're going against the grain no matter what, and it's
Well,
going to
we
happen.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, look what's happening in Texas.
Mm.
Okay, there is a state that, for the life of me, I don't understand how it's so red. But then I think about a president that says, I'm entitled to 5 more districts. I want you to go mid-decade and redraw the district lines
Yeah.
to minimize the voices of people of color and emphasize the voices of people that are like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if we start down that road where the majority is voiceless and the power is all concentrated in the hands of a minority, I mean, we've seen where that goes. Look at South Africa.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on the one hand, and this is current events. Gavin Newsom is, really. Have you noticed how, like, this week he has been very quiet?
Yes,
out
in
of
respect.
out of respect, and it's really something though how he is fighting back.
Well,
And
absolutely.
he's he's utilizing Trump's play card.
Michelle said, when they go low, we go high.
Yeah.
And I was in a discussion recently, and the person said to me, don't you want to fight? I said, I don't want to go to a gunfight carrying a butter knife. So before we decide we want to pick a fight, we need to understand what works to our advantage, what works against us. Can't do it by ourselves. We need allies.
Mm-hmm.
The civil rights movement passed because there were enough people of conscience across the whole spectrum that saw what needed to be corrected.
Yeah.
And we're at that time again.
Yeah.
I think of Michigan. I think Michigan has a Latino population of 7+%,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sorry, 6%, about 6%, and Saginaw has a little bit higher one. Okay, that's not a whole lot,
but that's counted.
but that's yeah. And the thing is, can we, if the difference in an election was 3% and we represent 4% of a party's voting block, okay, now we have some leverage. But if the difference, our number doesn't cover the spread, then we better have allies.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoke on a program on this radio station about why hasn't there been a natural coalition of Black and brown people?
Yeah.
Because we spend most of the time fighting each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really something that I have questioned myself, because when you hear those from the African American community, they're pretty much with us, honestly. We have all been marginalized people and have been attacked, and yet somehow we haven't grouped together for a stronghold.
No,
to
we haven't.
for justice, justice. And I am old enough to remember MLK Jr. and
Sure.
Bobby Kennedy, when Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Man, that man stood for something, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He really did.
And so when we look at the late 60s and we look at this time period, we have on the gamut,
we started eroding all of those gains from that period.
Yeah, and there were tremendous gains.
The voting rights bill has
Mhm.
been marginalized.
The Fair Housing Act.
Fair housing.
Yeah.
We still don't have the was it the equal for our women citizens equal rights amendment. I don't believe that's passed yet.
No.
And so power has been concentrated in the hands of a select group, and they don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
And they rigged the election. I don't know who they're talking about. I don't know how they rigged it, but somebody's doing some rigging.
Yeah. It's just it's unbelievable the times we are living in. And I think that we as a community better wake up. That's all I can say. And especially somehow our young people need to be more in tune with what's happening, because they are the ones that are going to be affected the most if we continue on this path
I think one of the things is that if you as a group have never been allowed to fully participate, you don't have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
So you can become complacent.
And that can be detrimental just
yes.
as much.
And then what we allow to happen to one group, happens to another group. I'm going to paraphrase. I won't get this right, but there was a poem written. First they came for the socialists. I wasn't a socialist, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the unionists. I wasn't in the union, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Jews. I wasn't Jewish, so I didn't say anything.
Mhm.
Then they came for me, and no one was left to speak for me.
Wow, powerful.
Okay, that's where we're at. This is not about left and right. This is about right and wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And somehow it seems to get overlooked
because it gets framed as left or right. It gets framed as them and us.
Yeah, yeah.
They demonize immigrants. They say they commit crimes at rates much that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Okay. They take money like they've never done before. All of this stuff to demonize.
And you even see some of the farmers now complaining because
they don't have the workers. The crops are rotting in the fields.
Yeah.
Okay. China hasn't ordered any soybeans, so those farmers don't have a market.
Yeah.
No. If we don't learn to be accepting of others just because they're different, doesn't make them worse, doesn't make us better. But when people say they follow Christ and that they're Christians, okay, white nationalist Christianity is not a Christianity that I grew up learning.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say that, and people are going to be upset that I said it.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. We're so afraid to speak out. We're so afraid to call a lie a lie.
Yeah.
We're so afraid to say that what they're doing is wrong. We're so afraid to say it doesn't matter. It won't happen to us.
Yeah.
It's okay if it happens to them.
And it's our opinion. It's what is coming from us as individuals who are experiencing things here as Mexican Americans in our communities. And so how can our truth not be believed or accepted?
But that's going back to being accepting of differences. I'm going to paraphrase another, and I may not get it exactly right, but justice denied to anyone is justice denied to everyone.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Well, if we allow injustices to occur and to occur in our name, then we're complicit in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we don't push back.
And the thing is that in America, we see how we have changed as a nation. But this isn't just in America. This is happening worldwide, even especially in the UK. Now, you said you've been to the UK. Yes. I've been to the UK. I went to school there at the University of London, actually. And if you compare today with, the UK of, say, the 80s or even the 90s, it's vastly different, and they're blaming immigrants for everything that's gone wrong in that country.
Yes.
And it's
the same thing in France.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the world. That's what's happening with the world. It's changing. It's the demographics are changing, and there's no stopping it, really. I mean, they're trying. Look what they're trying to do in some countries, and I don't even want to go there on this show. But it's tough that anybody would consider trying to do what Nazi Germany did.
Oh my gosh! Here in our country, our voices are being silenced.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't speak out against what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
Because it's offensive to our ally Israel.
Yeah.
They're committing genocide.
Yeah.
If they're our ally and we condone that, then we're complicit in that genocide. And to pretend it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Somebody says, well, it's Hamas's fault. They voted for Hamas. Yeah. In 2007, there hasn't been an election since. Okay. Yeah. And more than 50% of the Palestinians are 18 years or younger. So if you go back to 2007, that's 18 years, right? Most of the people weren't even alive.
Yeah.
And the ones that are alive, how many of them were not of voting age?
Yeah. Do you think that you see many of our young people though that they see the wrong there? Because I feel like that's
There's a
yeah,
shift in the country,
yeah,
but they're suppressing those voices.
yeah,
They're blackmailing universities that don't crack down on people speaking about what's going on in Palestine.
yeah,
Okay, they're cracking it down what books are allowed to be read. They're forcing upon us the 10 commandments.
hmm,
Separation of church and state. Well, that's not in the Constitution. It's not in the Declaration of Independence.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason that people came here in the first place. They get away from religious persecution.
How they forget. How they
Yes.
forget. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a change. We're less accepting of obvious genocide. I mean, my goodness, when our president talks about, it would make a great, be like the Riviera on the Mediterranean,
Yeah.
on Gaza could be like, a pearl, we just get them all out of there. Let's offer them 5,000 to go relocate someplace else. That's ethnic cleansing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then saying, well, we can't help it, that there's this collateral damage because Hamas is embedded. That's like the abused wife, the abuser saying to his wife, look what you made me do.
Yeah. The
come on.
narcissist. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's
but that's a whole nother discussion. But
yeah.
but it's silencing of our voices. It's silencing of dissent. It's silencing our media, calling them fake news, making personal attacks against reporters that ask nasty questions.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all silencing dissent. Our country was built on dissent,
Yeah.
on the freedom of dissent, and the freedom of the press. Now the press is corporate owned. When the airways first started, there was a mandatory 1 hour of news, and it wasn't equal. We got to give equal time to this or equal time to that. It was about what is right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't opinionated news.
No.
It was news, hardcore.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's changed, and somebody said, boy, I feel like McCarthy all over again.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. It is.
Yeah. We just found a different target.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got the guns. We got to shoot at something. Let's get a new target.
Yeah, that's true.
So I know that sounds harsh, but you know what? That's how I feel.
Yeah.
When you're the group that's being attacked, you're going to see the world in a different lens than those who are perceive themselves to be unaffected.
Yeah. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we
Yes.
are seeing. And I hope the midterms, which is a year from now, things will change.
I hope we
change.
get two parties with enough overlap, like there used to be, where you're centralists.
Mhm.
Right now, there is no overlap. Those parties are like this.
Yeah.
That's why we have
Totally
this
polarized,
polarization in our country.
Yeah. Well, John Ayala, thank you so much for being with me here on this, a tough show. I typically try to stay away from the politics in regards to Mi Gente on air. But this is really affecting our community now. I see it on a daily.
is.
I see it with in discussions that I have with people. It's tough. It's a tough time that we're living in. And, our prayers go out to everybody being affected. We pray for all those who are being affected in a negative way. And we pray for those who are leaders to, make better decisions.
Absolutely.
And so that's where we are today in September on this 16 de Septiembre,
Yeah.
the Independence Day of
Yes.
Mexico, when the friar Hidalgo, he came out and had the grito.
Grito.
But thanks for being with us, everybody here in the room, as we continue on and we march forward on Mi Gente on Air. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Wow.
we're still on social media here, and I
Okay.
just want to thank everybody who is in the room today. And it's a tough conversation that we're having, and it's what's amazing to me as a journalist, and I've been a journalist for over 30 years. There's no time in my life more so where I have felt that I'm being censored just for speaking my mind.
People have lost their jobs.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
Yes.
Isn't it sad? Yeah, just
People have lost
today.
their jobs for quoting
Yeah, for
not
quoting.
not for their point of view, not for their opinion, but for quoting what was said.
Yeah, I know. I said that just
That's
happened today.
crazy.
That just happened today.
I know.
Yeah, and so it's like, our Attorney General Pam Bondi, she's going after anybody who speaks, it's
A Congress member wanted the full force of the government to go after anybody that does that.
yeah, and
Really,
that
that's the function of our government.
and that is the sign of an autocratic government.
It is.
It's part of it. So,
It is.
yeah. So, I hope that everybody, kind of is, their ears are perked up, and that we're listening more, and that we can hopefully make sure that we're informed, and that we're just not complacent in what is happening today, because it's going to affect your children, your grandchildren, and if you look at how our world has vastly changed in the last 10 years, who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 years. So,
and let's move away from cruelty, because
Yeah.
cruelty is the point. This is not about law and order. This is not about protecting the southern border. This is about being cruel.
yeah, sure is.
And the idea is the more cruel you'll be, who wants to come here? Okay, well, isn't there a better way?
Yeah.
I mean, do we have to take parents away from a 12-year-old and he has no idea what happened to him?
And it's happening.
Do we have to beat the snot out of an elderly gentleman doing his job who has 3 sons in the Marine Corps fighting for this country?
Yeah.
There isn't a better way.
Can you believe
And
that?
these aren't just one-offs. This is happening multiple times.
Yeah.
And this should not be a political discussion. This is a right or wrong discussion.
Right.
And don't tell me you hold Christian values and condone this behavior.
Jesus never would have.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, John, for being with us. And we will invite you back on the show in the future. And,
Thank you.
it's 5 years that we've been doing Mi Gente on air
Yeah.
now. Believe it or not, that time went really fast. And
And I'm going to be real clear here. I don't speak for everybody.
right.
I'm expressing my viewpoint.
As a Mexican American living it. Yes.
And shared viewpoints that others have expressed to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just to be clear on that.
Yeah, it's our opinions and
yeah.
how we feel at this time. And you are a man who's informed, and it's important to bring people like you to voice, to share that lens to our community, to our listening audience, because as we know, many of the programs on this station are right-winged.
Yes.
Very so that's part of the whole reason why we have diversity here at this station. So
And I welcome the opportunity to express a point of view.
well, thank you
and
so
I try
much.
to back it up with not just my opinion, but references. I gave you a little package of a lot of things I
Yeah.
talked about, showing where the information came from, so that yes, it's an opinion I'm expressing, but it's one that I tried to be informed.
Right. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us in the room today. We'll see you next week here on Mi Gente on Air.